You're listening to a production of the National Media Archive. To learn more or volunteer, go to nationalmediaarchive.com.
Imagine living in a world where you're constantly watched, where every detail of your life is controlled by an elite few. A world where propaganda is everywhere and the voices of dissent are silenced. A world where everyone is lonely, isolated, and forced to exist as just another insignificant cog in an overwhelming machine. This chilling vision of the future is the one George Orwell put forward in his masterpiece 1984. Does it sound familiar? It's no coincidence that Orwell's predictions have slowly come true in nearly every way. Our society today mirrors his dystopian vision, and it might be worse than we think. Let's take a deeper look at how Orwell's 1984 speaks to us now, how the systems of control are already in place, and whether there's any chance for us to break free. The movie adaptation opens with a line from the novel that sets the stage. Who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past. This quote introduces the central theme of the book. The moment the story begins, we're shown an image of a crowd of people, all staring mindlessly at the propaganda of the party. The party is a shadowy government that controls every aspect of life. Their ideology is called Ingsoc, English socialism. The party controls all information. Their goal is to manipulate reality itself, ensuring that every aspect of life is dictated by them. Absolute obedience is required, even to the point of rejecting basic facts about life and your own thoughts. On screen, we see a video player creating an idealized image of life in Oceania, the nation that rules over the Americas, Britain, Australia, and parts of Africa. It's a totalitarian society where everything is monitored, censored, and controlled. This is when we meet the key players. First, Big Brother, an omnipresent figure whose face is everywhere. He's the symbol of the party's control, and his image is designed to evoke trust and fear at the same time. Then, there's Emmanuel Goldstein, a man who dares to question the party. He speaks out about the lies that the party tells, but his message is drowned out by the shouts of the audience, conditioned by the party to reject the truth. The party's control over society is so complete that people don't even want to hear the truth. As we watch this scene unfold, we're introduced to Winston Smith. He's our main character, a low-level worker at the Ministry of Truth. His job is to edit history, literally. If a previous news broadcast reported that sugar rations were high, but the current year's rations have been cut, Winston's task is to rewrite history, making it look like the sugar rations have increased. In essence, Winston erases the past to make the party's narrative align with the present. It's Orwell's version of fake news, except the stakes are much higher. After work, Winston returns home to his dilapidated apartment, where propaganda is playing on the telescreen, an ever-present invasive device that broadcasts the party's message 24/7. He's greeted by an image of a man being shamed for questioning the party's narrative about the war. This is a clear example of the party's control over reality. People are so brainwashed that they can't even comprehend the idea that they might be at war with one country one day and another the next. The truth no longer matters. Now let's talk about doublethink. This is one of the core concepts of the book. Doublethink is the ability to believe two contradictory things at the same time. It's how the party forces people to accept their lies. One example from the book. The party maintains that they are a bastion of democracy, but at the same time, they insist that democracy is impossible. Through doublethink, reality itself becomes fluid, and people are conditioned to accept whatever the party says, no matter how absurd. This is not just some abstract concept that Orwell dreamed up. It's been observed throughout history. Thousands of years ago, Plato wrote about what he called the noble lie. He suggested that society could function if the people believed in a fictional story about their origins, one that justified the social order. It didn't matter whether the story was true. As long as people accepted it, society could function. In modern times, we see examples of this everywhere, especially in the media and politics. The establishment constantly tells us they're working for freedom of speech, but at the same time, they censor anyone who disagrees with them. The contradiction is clear, but the power structures want us to believe their version of reality. As Orwell warned, these systems of control are more than just propaganda. They create a habitus, a deeply ingrained set of behaviors and beliefs that define a society's culture. Your habitus is shaped by your environment and the interactions you have with others. It tells you what is considered valuable, right, or wrong. The habitus is like the unwritten rulebook that everyone follows without ever questioning it. In 1984, the habitus is warped, distorted by the party's ideology. It's been poisoned from the top, and that poison has spread throughout society. It's a frightening concept because it shows how easily people can be manipulated. In fact, Orwell's world is much scarier than any slasher film because it's all too real. It's unsettling because it mirrors the trends we see today, where society seems to be a few steps away from totalitarianism. Let's dive back into the story. Winston, a man who still has some sense of individuality, sits in his apartment lighting a cigarette. It's in this moment we're introduced to another critical concept: thought crime. Thought crime is simply thinking against the party. Even considering rebellion is a crime because it takes the individual outside the party's constructed reality. The Thought Police, an organization that uses surveillance and informants to root out dissent, enforces this rule. Winston, despite his awareness of the world he lives in, becomes a thought criminal simply by remembering a time when people had free thoughts. Winston's day continues with mandatory exercises in front of his telescreen. He gets chastised for not exercising properly. He then returns to work, where, at lunch, he notices a young woman staring at him. He can't figure out why, but her gaze unsettles him. At work, a colleague talks about a new language the party has created called newspeak. The idea is simple. The party is trying to eliminate controversial words and simplify the language so that people cannot even conceptualize ideas like rebellion. If they can't think about it, then it's impossible to act on it. Winston spends his day continuing his work at the Ministry of Truth, where he's tasked with personing, a process where a person is completely erased from existence. The party has rewritten history so many times that they are continually erasing people who no longer fit into the party's narrative. Winston's job is to erase these people from history. And this practice echoes the purges of Joseph Stalin's Soviet Union, where individuals who were once considered allies of the state were erased from every record. It's a chilling reminder of how powerful totalitarian governments can be. They don't just control the present, they control the past. And they can remove anyone who might challenge their narrative. This is happening today in various forms. In countries like China, dissidents disappear from public life, their names erased from history. In the West, cancel culture has emerged as a form of this same idea. Public figures are silenced or erased for expressing ideas that go against the mainstream narrative. Governments, social media platforms, and corporations all work together to maintain a narrative that suits their interests. In this world, people like Winston who speak out against the system are punished. We see this process unfold throughout the story. But it's not just about censorship. It's about how the party keeps people in line by manipulating their reality, rewriting the world, and erasing inconvenient truths. To truly understand the power of this control, let's look at the way Orwell describes how society becomes structured. The party's influence over the habitus distorts the very fabric of social life. It erases individual freedom and creates a collective consciousness that supports the party's control. In this world, freedom is not just oppressed, it's impossible. The party's power is absolute, and for those who challenge it, there is no escape. Let's pick back up where we left off. Winston is still working at the Ministry of Truth, continuing the monotonous task of erasing people and altering history. The idea of erasing history is central to maintaining control. It ensures that there's no record of a time before the party's dominance, and that history is malleable, always aligning with the current party narrative. This ability to rewrite the past guarantees that the party is always right, no matter what. After a particularly draining day, Winston makes his way to an antique store in the slums of London, a place that feels like it's untouched by the party's pervasive control. It's here he meets the shop owner, a man who sells him a forbidden journal. Winston is beginning to harbor thoughts of rebellion, and the act of purchasing the journal marks the first step towards resistance. It's his private space where he can finally record his thoughts, something that's explicitly forbidden in his society. The act of writing in this journal is itself an act of defiance. It's a small rebellion against the omnipresent surveillance of the party. Winston's desire for freedom is growing stronger, but he's still hesitant. His thoughts are full of doubt. The party is everywhere. His every move is being watched. And yet, he dares to put pen to paper, creating a written record of his dissent. In this small, quiet act, Winston begins to see a glimmer of hope, a belief that maybe, just maybe, there's a way to fight back. Later, while at the store, Winston encounters the same young woman who had been staring at him during lunch earlier. They exchange a look, and for a moment, Winston is frozen. He wonders if she's another agent of the thought police, but something compels him to approach her, to ask her more. They briefly talk, and Winston is struck by how different she seems from everyone else. She's not just going along with the party's ideology. She's a symbol of rebellion, something he hasn't felt since his own doubts began to grow. At this point, Winston's inner conflict intensifies. He's both terrified and fascinated by this woman, whose name, as we find out later, is Julia. She's just as determined to break free from the party's grip as Winston is, and for the first time, Winston feels a connection, a sense of solidarity with another person. It's the beginning of their illicit relationship, a relationship that will serve as their private act of rebellion. As Winston and Julia's secret relationship begins to bloom, we get a deeper look into the terrifying control the party exerts over people's lives. It's not just about controlling what people say or believe. It's about controlling what they feel. In this society, emotions are subject to regulation. Personal relationships are strictly forbidden. Any connection between two people outside of the party's surveillance is seen as a threat to their power. Winston's relationship with Julia is, in essence, a rebellion not only against the party's laws, but against its very ability to control human intimacy. Winston's life is filled with fear. The thought police could be anywhere. There could be a spy watching him at any moment. And yet, his desire for something real, something human, outweighs his fear. He begins to defy the party's restrictions, secretly meeting with Julia in places they believe to be safe. They meet in the room above the antique shop. In this hidden space, they are free, for a brief moment, from the party's control. They share forbidden pleasures, real food, real wine, and the chance to experience life as it was before the party took over. It's a small rebellion, but it's a significant one. And yet, as they grow closer, Winston can't shake the feeling that they're not truly free. They're still living under the watchful eyes of Big Brother. They still have to keep their meetings a secret. They still risk everything every time they come together. Their relationship becomes a symbol of resistance, but it's also filled with contradictions. Winston is still unsure whether there is any true opposition to the party. He believes he's making a connection with O'Brien, a high-ranking member of the party. O'Brien has expressed interest in Winston's writing and appears to share his dissatisfaction with the regime. For a brief moment, Winston thinks he's found an ally, someone within the party who wants to tear it down from the inside. But this is another part of the party's strategy: deception. Winston's growing sense of hope is intertwined with a deep sense of dread. He's not just breaking the rules of society. He's breaking the rules of his own existence. His ability to trust anyone, including O'Brien, is undermined by the constant fear that everyone around him could be an agent of the party. In the world of 1984, the truth is impossible to discern. The party controls everything, including the truth itself. Winston's doubts about O'Brien grow when he's invited to O'Brien's luxurious apartment. Here, Winston experiences what seems like a moment of freedom, something rare in Oceania. O'Brien offers him real wine, a drink Winston has never tasted. He turns off the telescreen, a device that broadcasts the party's propaganda and monitors your every move. But this brief respite from the party's control is fleeting. O'Brien is not the ally Winston believes him to be. He's part of the party's system, a system designed to trap people like Winston. And yet, in this luxurious moment, Winston clings to the idea of resistance. O'Brien gives him a book, The Theory and Practice of Oligarchical Collectivism, a book written by the supposed leader of the resistance, Emmanuel Goldstein. This book is a manual for understanding how the party works and why it must be stopped. But as Winston reads it, he learns that the world he lives in is even more complex and terrifying than he realized. There are 3 superstates in the world of 1984: Oceania, Eurasia, and East Asia. They are perpetually at war, but the war isn't about winning or losing. It's about maintaining control. The war exists to keep the people impoverished and distracted. The party uses the war as a tool to maintain its grip on society. The endless shifting of alliances between these superstates is part of the strategy to keep the people in a constant state of confusion, unable to grasp the truth. The war is just another tool of manipulation, much like the party's control of the past and the present. It doesn't matter who Oceania is fighting. What matters is that the people never question the war. It's part of the habitus, the societal illusion created by the party. The people of Oceania, like Winston, are conditioned to believe whatever they are told, even when the truth is constantly shifting beneath their feet. And that's what makes 1984 so unsettling. The system is designed to prevent any real resistance. It's not about controlling the military, the economy, or the resources of a country. It's about controlling what people believe. The party rewrites history, manipulates language, and creates a society where reality itself becomes a fluid construct, constantly shifting to maintain power. Winston's journey is one of self-discovery and rebellion, but it's also a descent into hopelessness. The more he tries to break free, the more he's trapped by the system. It's not just the party's physical power that oppresses him. It's the mental and emotional control they exert over every aspect of his life. The party has even succeeded in controlling Winston's thoughts, in making him doubt his own memories, his own sense of reality. This is the terrifying power of totalitarianism. It doesn't just control what you do, it controls who you are. Winston's downward spiral into paranoia and fear continues as he tries to make sense of his own reality. He begins to suspect that his brief moment of rebellion with Julia may have been a trap all along. The fact that O'Brien, someone he thought was his ally, is a key member of the party shakes him to the core. The more Winston learns, the more he realizes just how deeply the party's grip on society extends, shaping everything from the truth to basic human emotions. The tension builds as Winston becomes more paranoid. He starts to fear that his every move is being watched. The thought police could be monitoring him at any moment. But it's not just the fear of the party that's gnawing at Winston. It's the realization that even his most private thoughts are being manipulated. In the world of 1984, there's no room for independent thinking. The party demands total loyalty, not just in action, but in thought. At this point in the story, Winston's relationship with Julia becomes even more dangerous. They can't afford to trust anyone, and even their secret meetings are a risk. The party's surveillance is all-encompassing. The fact that Winston and Julia have been able to meet as often as they have is a miracle in itself. But even this small act of rebellion comes with a cost. Winston realizes that he and Julia are playing a dangerous game, and no matter how hard they try to stay hidden, they can't escape the all-seeing eye of Big Brother forever. The tension in the narrative builds even further when Winston and Julia are caught. The moment feels inevitable. They have been living in defiance of the party for so long, and now their time has run out. The thought police descend upon them with terrifying precision. The antique shop, once a symbol of Winston's small rebellion, is revealed to be a trap, a carefully orchestrated surveillance point set up by the party to catch dissidents like Winston. The shopkeeper, who Winston thought was just a harmless man, is revealed to be a party agent working to track Winston's every move. Winston's capture is a devastating blow. He's not just physically arrested. The party's power over him extends to his mind, his soul. His every belief, every thought, has been manipulated by the party's ideologies. His journey, which began as a quest for truth and freedom, now seems hopeless. The party is not just a political system. It's a force that can erase all traces of individuality and thought. Now in custody, Winston is taken to the Ministry of Love, a chillingly ironic name for a place of brutal torture and re-education. The Ministry of Love isn't about love at all. It's about breaking the will of those who resist. It's where Winston is taken to be broken down, to be forced into submission. This process is not just physical, it's mental. It's about rewriting Winston's understanding of the world, forcing him to embrace the party's version of reality. Inside the Ministry of Love, Winston's fate becomes inevitable. He's subjected to a horrifying series of interrogations and tortures. The chief torturer, O'Brien, plays the role of Winston's false ally, leading him to believe that he's helping Winston come to terms with the reality of the party's power. O'Brien's manipulation is brutal. He tells Winston that the party has the power to define reality itself. 2 + 2 can equal 5 if the party says so. The key to controlling society isn't just about military power or economic dominance. It's about controlling the very essence of truth itself. This terrifying manipulation of truth is what keeps the party in control. If they can convince people that their version of reality is the only one that matters, then they have ultimate power. The party can create its own truth, and it can rewrite history at will. As Winston is tortured, O'Brien forces him to accept the party's version of reality. He breaks Winston down, layer by layer, until there's nothing left but the party's lies. The moment Winston accepts that 2 plus 2 can equal 5 is the moment he is fully broken. The psychological terror doesn't end there. O'Brien takes Winston to Room 101, the final stage of his torture. Room 101 is where the party forces its prisoners to confront their worst fears. For Winston, it's rats. The party knows his deepest fear and exploits it to destroy his last shred of resistance. It's in Room 101 that Winston finally betrays Julia. In the face of his greatest fear, he begs O'Brien to torture her instead of him. It's a heartbreaking moment, Winston's complete submission to the party. He has been broken, not just physically, but spiritually. He no longer cares about his love for Julia or his desire for rebellion. All that matters now is survival, and in his final moments of humanity, he sacrifices Julia. This is the moment of complete transformation. Winston is no longer the man he was at the beginning of the story. The man who sought truth, who dared to resist. He is a shell, a puppet of the party, completely under their control. The party has won. After his torture, Winston is released back into society, but he is a changed man. The Winston who once dreamed of rebellion no longer exists. The Winston who loved Julia is gone. The Winston who hated Big Brother is now a loyal follower. He has been completely brainwashed, and now, in a twisted irony, he truly loves Big Brother. The final shot of Winston, sitting alone in the Chestnut Tree Cafe, reflects the total destruction of his spirit. He no longer feels the need for rebellion. He has been fully absorbed into the party's vision of the world. The story of Winston's transformation from rebel to obedient follower is a powerful commentary on the dangers of totalitarianism. Orwell's 1984 doesn't just show us a world of oppression. It shows us how that oppression can be internalized. It shows us how total control of the mind is the ultimate goal of any totalitarian regime. The party's victory isn't just about controlling the bodies of its citizens. It's about controlling their thoughts, their desires, and their very sense of reality. But as we look around the world today, Orwell's warning feels more urgent than ever. The power structures that exist today, governments, corporations, and the media, are not as overt as the party in 1984, but they still exert a powerful influence over our lives. They manipulate the narrative, control information, and shape our perceptions of reality. We may not be living in a world as extreme as Winston's, but the seeds of control are already planted. We live in a world where the media tells us what to think, where social media algorithms dictate what we see, where our political leaders and economic elites shape the narrative to fit their agendas. The war for truth is ongoing, and as Orwell warned, the more we allow others to control the narrative, the closer we come to a future like the one he imagined. Now, let's bring this all together. After Winston's ultimate betrayal and his final submission to Big Brother, Orwell's 1984 leaves us with a chilling conclusion. The party is invincible. It's not just a political system. It's a force that reshapes reality itself. The party controls the past, the present, and the future. Through mechanisms like the thought police, propaganda, and torture, it has eliminated any hope of rebellion. Winston's story, from a man who dared to think for himself to a broken puppet of the party, is a warning for us all. But Orwell's warning doesn't end with Winston's downfall. 1984 is a call to action, a reminder that if we don't actively fight against the forces of control, we might end up in a world just like Oceania. While Winston's fate is sealed, it's not too late for us to change our own world. We have to ask ourselves, how much control do we allow others to have over our minds? How much of our reality are we willing to give up in exchange for comfort, convenience, or safety? This is where the parallels to our current world become undeniable. Orwell wrote 1984 as a critique of the totalitarian regimes of his time, but the systems he described, the constant surveillance, the manipulation of truth, the destruction of privacy, are all too real today. Governments, corporations, and powerful elites are able to control vast swaths of the population through technology, media, and economic power. The tools that Orwell feared are already at our fingertips. Take, for example, the role of social media in shaping public perception. We are constantly fed information through algorithms designed to keep us engaged. These platforms collect data on us, shaping what we see, what we think, and how we feel. And as we become more isolated in our virtual worlds, we become less connected to the real world. Our understanding of the world is manipulated, and we often fail to see the larger forces at work. This is the same kind of control that Orwell warned us about, the manipulation of information to keep people passive, distracted, and ultimately in line with the agenda of those in power. Even more concerning is the growing trend of censorship. The idea that certain opinions and ideas must be silenced for the greater good is increasingly becoming a reality. We see this in the way social media platforms censor users who speak out against certain narratives, whether it's about politics, the pandemic, or social issues. What happened to the freedom to express differing viewpoints? Where is the line between free speech and control? Orwell's concept of doublethink, where contradictory beliefs are accepted without question, is alive and well in today's discourse. We're told that we must accept certain truths while being discouraged from questioning them. Just like in 1984, the manipulation of truth is one of the most powerful tools in maintaining control. In the world of 1984, the party ensures that its grip on power is absolute by erasing history, rewriting the past, and eliminating any trace of rebellion. In our world, we see a similar erasure of history taking place. Statues are being torn down, books are being rewritten, and language is being modified to fit a specific narrative. Children's books are being edited to remove offensive language or concepts that might challenge current ideologies. Just like the party's control of history, these actions are designed to shape the way we see the world, to control what we remember, and to dictate how we should think. The most insidious aspect of Orwell's 1984 is how the party controls not just people's actions, but their minds. It's about shaping their very understanding of reality. This control of the mind is where Orwell's work hits hardest. We might not be living under the complete surveillance of Big Brother, but we are living in a world where our thoughts, our actions, and our very identities are constantly being shaped by external forces. Whether it's the media, advertising, or social pressures, the modern world is a place where the battle for control of our minds is ongoing. Now, let's take a look at the financial aspect. The economic forces that Orwell described in 1984, the constant poverty, the endless struggle to make ends meet, the ever-growing gap between the rich and the poor, are also present in our world today. The wealthy elite continue to amass more power, while the majority of people struggle to keep up. The wealth gap is widening, and more people are being left behind. Orwell's description of the party's control over the economy in 1984 mirrors the increasing dominance of global corporations in the real world. The concept of a corporate oligarchy is not just a fictional idea, it's becoming a reality. We see this in the growing power of tech giants, media conglomerates, and financial institutions. These organizations have unprecedented control over our lives, from what we see online to the products we buy and the services we use. They shape the economy to serve their own interests, and in doing so, they maintain a system of control that benefits the few at the expense of the many. And yet, despite all this, Orwell's 1984 is not just a grim prediction. It's a call to resist. In the world of the novel, Winston's rebellion is ultimately crushed, but it's not too late for us to learn from his mistakes. We must be vigilant. We must resist the forces that seek to control us, whether they come in the form of government surveillance, corporate manipulation, or media propaganda. We cannot afford to be passive. If we want to avoid the future Orwell warned us about, we must take action. We must be willing to fight for our freedoms, for the truth, and for our right to think for ourselves. In 1984, Orwell showed us a world where freedom is a distant memory, where people are nothing more than cogs in a machine. But it's important to remember that this dystopia didn't happen overnight. It was the result of years of manipulation, surveillance, and control, and it's happening right now. The systems of control are already in place, and if we don't actively fight against them, we could find ourselves living in a world very much like Winston's. But there is hope. Just like Winston, we have the power to resist. We have the power to challenge the narrative, to question the truth, and to fight for our freedom. The world may seem dark, but it's not too late to change course. The fight for truth, for freedom, and for individuality is ongoing, and it's a fight that's worth having.